Grandma Landwehr is going to read Tenderfoot. It's by a story by Toby and Brad Bluth. Illustrations, that's are the pictures, by Toby Bluth. Ideals Publishing Corporation of Nashville, Tennessee, and copyrighted of 1965-ish by 65 by the Bluth Brother Productions. So Emma, Caleb, and Noah, just sit back, pretend that I'm sitting with you along the side of your bed, reading the book to you with arms around you, and we're all snuggled up together. Okay, oh, I forgot to point out that looks like this book belonged to Christina, Aunt Christina, or Mommy Christina, and because she wrote her autograph in the side there. Okay, once there were 3 buddies, a duck named Dickie, a rabbit named Jack, and a monkey named Bobo. They were the best of friends and all closest brothers. The duck was a dapper sort of kid and a little conceited, but this was only because he was aware of his own startling good looks. The rabbit, on the other hand, relied less on his good looks and more on his brain. The monkey, by contrast, was neither conceited nor brainy. He moved by instinct. One summer, the buddies joined a scout trip. This night, the troop met to prepare for a camping trip in the wilderness. Far away from the city, the buddies listened intently as the scoutmaster, Old Dog, and his assistant trustee, Beaver, checked the list of supplies. If there's one thing a scout knows, is that you have to be prepared, and the kids in this troop had everything from toothbrushes to frying pans. Old Dog had trained his boys well. There was one, however, a bully named Nero Hogwash, who never listened. This pig considered himself smarter than scouting. He only joined the troop because his mama had insisted, hoping the scouts could shape him up. So far, this had not happened. Nero was never prepared. Nero never listened to the scoutmaster. He gobbled up all of the refreshments before the meeting was over. Worst of all, he made fun of the other boys for taking scouting so seriously. But tonight, everyone was so excited about tomorrow's trip, they paid very little attention to Nero, except for a cat named Scrap, who went along with Nero to avoid the ridicule of the pig. The morning of the big trip arrived. Mama Hogwash, who ordinarily did not get up so early, dragged her ham hocks from bed and roused her sleepy pig. No matter how much Nero complained and whined, Mama Hogwash was determined to send him on this trip. Between sips of coffee and puffs on a cigarette, she said to a friend on the telephone, "No, he doesn't want to go. No, he doesn't appear to have scouting in his blood, but if I don't get this kid out of the house for a couple weeks, I'll go crazy." So when his mama wasn't looking, Nero stole a cigarette from her purse. Hee 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 hee. Nero snickered to himself. Oh, that's not a good thing to do. Never take anything from your mommy's purse. No, the scout truck arrived and Mama Hogwash kissed Nero's snout, pushed him out the door. "Now you be a good little, Mama's good little pig," she hollered and waved goodbye. Nero Hogwash felt the stolen cigarette hidden in his pocket. Hee hee hee. He chuckled, thinking he was very clever. An Old Dog helped Nero into the truck, and away the scouts went. Isn't it funny how people are different? On the one hand, the buddies loved everything about scouting and this trip was a real adventure. On the other hand, Nero Hogwash hated everything about scouting, and what's amazing when you step back and look real close is that the folks who resist and resent and gripe are the folks who need a thing most. The truck rolled through the outskirts of the city and into the countryside. After many hours, the scouts left the countryside and were now pressing upward into the mountain wilderness, where the scenery was totally awesome. The clean mountain breeze blew through their hair and whistled in their ears. Dickie Duck, Jack Rabbit, and Bobo could hardly contain their excitement. "Look at the mountains! Look at the sky! Look at the trees!" they shouted. But the pig wasn't watching the mountains, the sky, or the trees. He was stuffing his face with candy bars and tossing the wrappers out of the back of the truck. "Nero, quack, quack, you can't do that," Dickie Duck said. You're a scout, and you're not supposed to litter." And Nero snorted back, How would you like your bill bent, Dick?" Dickie Duck, "Well, oh, I wouldn't." "Quack, quack," quacked the Dickie Duck. "Then mind your own business," he grunted. And the pig grunted, and for the rest of the drive, the buddies avoided the littering pig. Finally, they arrived at the campsite, and what a sight it was. They set up their tents in a clearing. There was a big lake on the one side where they could fish and they could swim way out here. And all around there were hills to climb. Nero Hogwash convinced Scrap Cat that they should stay out of sight until the work was done. On the other hand, Dickie, Jack, and Bobo had been at the very center of activity. When the campsite was all set, they went exploring and found a poster of Smokey the Bear on a tree. Jack Rabbit read aloud, "Only you can prevent forest fires." "That's a good thing to remember," said Jack. "I read that most fires are started because people don't think." The buddies heard laughter behind them and turned to see Nero and Scrap Cat. "You guys are really a bunch of jerks," sneered the pig. "All this goody-goody stuff, grunt, gun-ho, scouts, and now Smokey the Bear. When are you going to grow up? There's no such thing as a person as Smokey the Bear. That bear is just some dummy that somebody made up to try to scare kids from about fires. Get real," he continued. "See how green those trees are?" He, honked again. "Well, trees that green, they don't burn." So Bobo's instinct was to punch the pig in the snout, but his friend stopped him. After all, the pig was big, and his friend Scrap Cat had sharp razor fingernails. "And you guys stay out of my face," Nero said, and he threatened. "That goes for me double," snapped the cat, and Nero swaggered off to his tent with Scrap tagging along behind. The scouts slept like logs that night in the forest. The next morning, they ate a hearty breakfast of sausages and hotcakes dripping with butter and swimming in hot maple syrup. Everything smelled and tasted so good in the fresh mountain air. Nero made a pig of himself. Consequently, when the troop took their hike, the fat pig was so uncomfortably stuffed that he lagged behind, waddled and gripping to his friend the cat. And he was griping to his friend the cat, too. Trusty Beaver, the troop, and the buddies strode far ahead, taking in the wonders of this wilderness world. The scouts hiked to the very top of a cliff with a magnificent view. Dickie, Jack, and Bobo had never seen anything so awesome. But hidden down in the bushes, the pig who was smarter than Scouty, pulled out his stolen cigarette. Nero Hogwash wallowed in hog heaven as he sat there smoking just like a big pig. He even convinced Scrap Cat to take a few puffs, but it only made the cat feel a little sick. That wasn't good to do, was it? Now Nero and Scrap Cat rejoined the others as they hiked back down the hill. No one would ever know their secret, or would they? You see, Nero had left something dangerous behind. What do you think it was? It was a cigarette butt. He had carelessly stepped on it only once. Now, if there's one thing a scout knows, never be careless with fire. But since the pig thought he was smarter than scouting and did not believe in Smokey the Bear, he didn't give this cigarette butt a thought. And there it lay with a tiny orange spark glowing in its ashes, a bomb waiting to go off. Uh-oh, that's trouble, isn't it? What do you think, Emma and Caleb and Noah? During the hike back, Nero was uncontrollable. He playfully pushed several boys, including Scrap, off the trail into some poison oak. Dickie, Jack, and Bobo stuck together and stayed away from the pig and out of harm. By the time the troops got back to camp, the other scouts were scratching and crying. Trusty Beaver got out the calamine lotion, but there wasn't enough. There was only one thing left to do. The injured scouts would have to be taken home. Look at the rash they've all got from poison oak. So Scoutmaster Old Dog was an extremely patient man, but Nero had pushed him too far. He pulled the boy aside and, controlling his anger, he quietly explained, "I know you think you're smarter than scouting, and maybe you think I haven't noticed what's been going on since you joined our troop. Well, I have. I haven't done anything about it because you need what we have to offer more than any of the other boys, but this time you've gone too far, so I'm sending you home with the other kids." The pig panicked. If he came home early, Mama Hogwash would be furious. He pleaded and promised to be better, and the Scoutmaster was always willing to help any boy who was willing to try, reconsidered, and said Nero could stay. But way down deep in his piggy heart, Nero was plotting a way to get back at Old Dog. That night the hog got a log and quietly dragged it to the entrance of the Scoutmaster's tent. "Hee hee hee," he snickered. "When that old dummy comes out of his tent in the morning, he'll trip and fall flat in his face. That'll show him." And as usual, Nero was not thinking, and his pranks were just about to backfire. You see, the careless bomb Nero had left in the woods had just gone off. Fire, fire, fire! Everywhere, green trees hissed and exploded. A wall of flame surrounded the camp. Red-hot embers shot through the air, spreading the fire. The uncontrolled forest fire roaring around the scout camp. If the scouts were to survive, they had to think and act quickly. Uh-oh. Now what are they going to do? "Boys," shouted the Scoutmaster, "we've got to get down to the lake." But what was in front of Old Dog's tent? Oh no, the hog log. The Scoutmaster tripped just as Nero planned and fell flat on his face. He was knocked out cold and broke his arm with the fall. The pig hadn't learned his lesson. He was about to get burned. The fire was upon them, and the one person who would know what to do was unconscious. Things looked bad. Things looked very bad. Nero went berserk. "It's death!" he screamed, blindly running straight into the flames. His clothes caught fire. The faster the pig ran, the faster and the more he fanned the flames. Now, if there's one thing a scout knows, it's don't run if you are on fire. You drop to the ground and roll in the flames. Instinctively, Bobo jumped into action. He tackled the streaking pig with his hands. He beat out the flames. Now you might ask yourself, how did he know to do such a thing? I'll tell you. He listened at the meetings and he read his scout book, and he never thought he'd be caught in a fire, but he was. Bobo was prepared. So see, Bobo's putting out the flames near the pig. So his buddies, Jack and Dickie, were prepared also. They had taken their shirts and they made a stretcher just like the one in the handbook. And quickly but carefully they lifted Old Dog onto it. If there's one thing a scout knows, it's in the heat of confusion, keep a cool head. Without panicking, the buddies dodged the flames and headed for the lake with the burnt pig and the unconscious dog. So all through the night they stayed safe in the water. When the scoutmaster came to, he saw how well the boys had handled the situation. He was very proud of them. Nero just whimpered and cried, "I want to go home. I want my mama." He didn't look too much like a big pig now, just like a big baby. Worst of all, he was afraid someone would find out that it was he who started the forest fire. At dawn, the firefighters had the blaze under control. Trusty Beaver arrived with the Rangers in a rescue helicopter. Nero was in for one final shock. Who should step out of the chopper but Smokey the Bear? His eyes were large and kind, but very serious. "We're glad you're safe," said Smokey. "You could have been hurt, and really badly hurt." "That's thanks to my scouts here," said the scoutmaster. "We're all right." Smokey looked at the charred waste all around him and sadly shook his head. "This was probably started by someone who didn't think. When will people ever learn? Only you can prevent forest fires." So Nero's burns were bandaged. He never told anyone about the cigarette, but he and Scrap Cat both knew. Getting burned once was enough for the cat. After that, he became a model scout. At a special awards meeting, Old Dog publicly commended the buddies and decorated them for bravery. The kids and the troop went crazy, shouting and applauding their friends. Many years have passed, and Dickie Duck, Jack Rabbit, and Bobo are now grown up and have gone their separate ways, but they frequently recall those golden days when they were scouts. Sometimes they take out their badges, sometimes they put them on, and when they do, a strange thing happens. They're no longer grown up. They are no longer miles apart. They're once again young and the buddies. The end. So thank you for listening, Emma and Caleb and Noah. So I'm giving you a big hug right now, and giving you a kiss and a hug. Good night, and praying with you so you can have a good sleep. Good night.